Christ and body of the Spirit, and let's sing together, Gather the Spirit. Gather the Spirit, harvest the bough, our separate flies, will kindle on flame, witness the mystery of this hour, what dwells in this light, appear all the same, gathered in peace, gathered in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in awe, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
You may now be seated. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Rochester. It is so good to be with all of you. You're a little bit closer than you often are on other weeks, and I'm gonna try my best to not step on your toes or accidentally hip check you, but no guarantees. We're a full heart, full mind, full contact kind of congregation, and it takes all of us. We're not 1 hour separated out from the rest of our week. We're not a building. We're a people with a purpose. And our mission is through spiritual connection in community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation. And we serve together with love and humility. We are a people with a purpose. And we gather together because we're inspired and held by those around us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. Or maybe we feel connected in reaching back to our values that we know that we hold, but can forget as the weeks fill up and get busy, and so much about life lulls us into seeing ourselves as separate from one another. We know that together we can do powerful things, and one of the ways we practice this, and by practice I mean do again and again, one of the ways we practice this is through our tradition of the Greater Good Project. During the winter holidays, we gather together all that we would have spent. And that's money, but also time. And we collectivize it. We take some of it, half of it for some families, more for others, less for others, and we put it all towards a common cause. And the Greater Good Project, led by our children, invites us to support financially 2 different organizations doing the work of love and justice. And so this year, we had 2 organizations, both supporting housing here in Rochester. Person-centered housing options and Family Promise. Family Promise helps families continue to have stable housing. And for a long time, we partnered with the organization when it was called RAIN to be a temporary place of housing here. And then the organization found that actually families do better when they don't have to move from congregation to congregation. And so they changed their model when they learned more, and we changed with them. We are proud today to present Family Promise with a check with half of our Greater Good collection this year. And a small note that if you were sitting there like me thinking, oh shoot, I meant to give my Greater Good gift and I did not, if you do it in the next week, we'll still send it to them. But we've got members of our Greater Good team, Judy Bennett and David Ryder, as well as the director of Family Promise, Kim Hunt-Uzlek. You're giving me a thumbs up because I got about 80% of the way there. Yeah, I appreciate your graciousness. But, well, Judy and David, will you give Kim our check for this year's collection? Oh, and Kenzie. Great, Kenzie, thank you. So, can we just, Pablo had a drum roll going. Could we get a drum roll on our... And so Family Promises, half of this Greater Good collection is $18,669.52. Thank you, Kim, and thank you to all the people of Family Promise who do the work of love and justice. You help make Rochester a better place, and we're grateful to partner with you. Thank you. And we'll send you a real check this week, too. I am told that you used to be able to write a check on an apple or any real thing. That's no longer true. We'll send you a real check, but yeah, no need to, hold on. Great. So, thank you, Kim. I've got a story of Stefan and Michael. Now, you might be thinking, if you know these two, I must be talking about these two. It's not a story about them. It's about two other people who moved with their children, Ernesto and Kristen, moved with their children to a new home, a place that they knew was theirs, or they had a suspicion it was theirs, but it didn't quite feel right yet. It didn't quite feel like the place that they would call home yet. It was a house, roof, and walls, and the furniture was all the same, but it was arranged differently, so it felt different. And they needed something. They needed something to tell them that this was a new beginning. And so Ernesto said, oh, I know, we should do that thing we do at church. Let's light a chalice at the beginning. And Stefan said, yeah, when we joined, I think the church gave us a chalice, and I don't know what box that's in. We're in the middle of moving, and I can't find that. But, well, Christian said, don't worry, sometimes at church we use a flower pot. We use two flower pots. We put one on top of the other, and it makes a chalice. It's a vessel you can put fire in. And Stefan said, that's a great idea. I don't know where our gardening supplies are. It's the end of January, you monster. He said that second part in his head, because you don't say that to children. But nobody likes getting called out. And then Ernesto said, don't worry, I've got an idea, and ran to the kitchen box and started rummaging around. And Ernesto found a cup and a bowl, and he flipped the cup upside down, and he put a bowl right on top. And that family had a chalice. And fortunately, one of them had a candle in their pocket. Things get weird when you're moving and you realize, oh yeah, that didn't make it into the box it was supposed to. And then they knew they had matches that the church had sent them at some point, but where were those? I'd take those. And the family lit a chalice. And this congregation, this community, we will light a chalice. This one here, homemade. And Michael and his husband Don will light our chalice, our regular one. And if you're online, I invite you to do something like this and light one. So let's join in our unison words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. I'm gonna need some help.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Last time. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Hello, my name is Jenna Cohen, and I'm going to be reading you a story that I wrote, and it is inspired by the life and legacy of my grandfather. It's called Hand-Me-Down Legacy. My grandfather lived in a world where monsters walked the earth. The monsters lived across the world in a distant land, and even though his family had fled the land in time to escape the monsters' grasp, crossed oceans, hiked tall mountains, hid in vast grassy plains, he could still feel the echoes of fear and death left in the monster's wake. As a little boy, he learned to arm himself with weaponry to fight them. As he grew, so did his bravery. He was valiant, a strength unmatched by any I have ever known. And as the years went on, the monsters weakened, war faded, and human beings were left counting their loved ones, for not everyone had made it. It had seemed as though the monsters had been defeated. My grandfather soon married a beautiful, kind-hearted woman who brought light and life back into his eyes. Together, they built a castle on top of a hill and filled it with children and grandchildren like me. They talked loudly, laughed loudly, loved loudly, and as the years went on, my grandfather knew peace. However, the monsters were more difficult to defeat than we thought. They were masters of disguise, masking themselves and their true intentions. And just like the wind is hard to see, so too was the fear and hate that lived in their hearts and minds. My grandfather was older and unable to fight as he once had. He took my hand, kissed me on my cupola, and gathered the rest of his grandchildren and led them out of the castle, down the hill to a rowboat on the shore of a lake. The water glistened as the sun began to rise. We rowed to the middle of the lake, taking turns with the oars. My grandfather was shaking and solemn. It was quiet. Only the sound of the boat slowly pushing through the water could be heard. We arrived at a dock anchored to a large chain. My grandfather reached below the water, pulling out a smaller chain and slowly pulling whatever it was holding out of the darkened blue depths. He cleared his throat. "I have something for you all," he said. "I was hoping you would never need it." A large trunk emerged from the water. The grandchildren gasped and looked at each other. Inscribed on the trunk were the words, "Far die Toit eun die liebedig mir mutzen idis zogen," meaning, "For the dead and the living, we must bear witness." My grandfather reached in his pocket, pulling out a key to the trunk, his hands shaking as he reached to unlock it. My eldest cousin placed his hand on my grandfather's and said, "It's okay, Grandpa, I can do it." My eldest cousin inserted the key into the rusted lock and turned it with great effort. After a few seconds of struggling, the key clicked into place, releasing the clasp. Tears fell gently onto my grandfather's cheeks. The grandchildren recognized the black insignia on a red cloth as the markings on the monsters they had seen in history books. There were old books with scuffs and tears on their binding, gold teeth, and photos of skeletal-looking people with numbers tattooed on their forearms. The grandchildren also found damaged clothing, several pairs of small shoes, and crumpled papers with angry faces and big noses in newspaper cutouts from years long past in a language the grandchildren didn't recognize. As the grandchildren continued to look through the different items in the trunk, they looked up at my grandfather with confusion and curiosity in their eyes. My youngest cousin asked, "I don't understand. What's so special about this stuff?" My grandfather cleared his throat and said this trunk contained all of the weapons he used to fight off the monsters. He explained that the monsters were never large, scary creatures, but rather other human beings who collectively used their hate and fear to dictate their treatment of those who were different from them. As their hate and ignorance grew, the worse they treated those around them, nearly destroying the world in the process. My grandfather looked at us grandchildren one by one and said the reason he kept his collection of weapons was so he could retell the history of our people, to honor the memory of those who perished in war, and to strengthen the bond our family has to our heritage. It is my wish for you to take these books, papers, photos, and clothing and use them to educate yourselves and those around you, my grandfather said. He went on, "It is my hope that you will go on to unite the world, celebrate the differences of others, and treat everyone with dignity and compassion. It is important to recognize and acknowledge the humanity in hatred and fear. We cannot truly progress or change the world for the better if we continue to separate the past from the present, to say what once was is no more. It is easy to distinguish a group of people as evil or monstrous in their actions and behavior, but it is much harder to accept that cruelty to such a high degree still prevails in our world today and will continue if we don't actively fight against it. Go on, grow and flourish. Lift up those around you and speak out against injustice. Find peace in your soul, take pride in your heritage, and carry on the legacy of our family." On the journey back to the castle, the rowboat made its way through the water. The sun had fully risen, giving life to a new day and the hope of a new beginning. Thank you.
As the lights fade down, I invite you to settle into your seat, to feel the earth and the space that holds you, to fill it with your presence and your body. Settle in. And if you're comfortable and trust enough the people sitting alongside you, I invite you to close your eyes. Opening your heart as if it were a trunk of clothing and books and news articles. What pain in the world or in your life is there? What breaks your heart? Holding the suffering of the world and in our lives tenderly, there is more in this trunk, more in our hearts. What warmth exists in witness, in help, in the voices of children? Where are you reminded of the connections with those who seek to help and to not harm? A voice rings out from above. Does everybody see where we're going? What sparks are alive in your heart? What possibilities or hopes exist? Simply sparks, maybe not realistic, maybe only dreams, but flashes of light. And finally, what's the fire that burns within? What flame and heat stirs your soul and keeps you living and loving each day? You do not have to understand it. You do not even need to know always without a doubt that it is there. It burns still, eternally present, and fed by the warmth and heat of all who gather to remind you of who you are, what you love, and whose you are. May the chalice within us all burn brightly. Amen. I invite you to open your eyes once more. And, well, I realized we were actually supposed to, you might be surprised because we lit more chalices today than we normally do, but it's a chalice-themed service, so we've got more to do. And, well, this is a chalice I carry with me at all times. Every moment. And you're also carrying it, but you might not yet know it. I didn't know it until our children taught me. I didn't know it until one day I was up with our religious education program, and our kids taught me about this chalice. So if each of you would reach out down, and it's possible you have to go all the way down to the ground, but reach down and into your pocket on the right side or pocket area, should you be wearing something that doesn't have pockets, as so much women's clothing inconveniently does not. And, well, so pull out your hand, and I don't know if you knew this, but you already have the major part of a chalice. There's a U for Unitarianism. And in your other pocket, you've got another U, but actually this is Universalism, and you don't have your own, you've got someone else's. So I want you to look around the room, because whoever you have, they're here, and, well, somebody else has yours. So you're gonna have to pass it to the person who's got your Universalism. So just send it to whoever needs it, and, well, receive it. So, all right. I can see some of you are very certain, yes, this is my Universalism now. And some of you, quite frankly, you're still trying it on. You're not sure. It works anyway. So you're gonna set them right in one another, and you've got yourself a chalice. But, well, we're flaming here. So each of us carries a spark within us, that fire that rages within, sometimes massive and sometimes hidden away and in need of the fuel that others can provide. Place that spark right in the middle. I like to blow mine in. And let it burn. Amen.
Everything that our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. Each week we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester. And half of our Sunday offering goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. Today we share our plate with Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The UUSC puts Unitarian Universalism into action to advance human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive policies. In the spirit of abundance and generosity, our offering will be received with gratitude.
I think we might have a Harry Potter fan. Imagine you're in what is now the Czech Republic, and it is beautiful there. The grass is green, the hills are rolling, and the sky is blue. But there's fear and violence in the air. It's a beautiful place, but you didn't come here for the beauty. You're not a tourist. Your husband is doing the work that you two were sent to do, working with humanitarian relief organizations as people start to move in to where you are living. But it's clear you have other work to do. You're beautiful, and you are. And you have a pretty smile. And in this story, you're a white American woman, married to a Harvard graduate, a Unitarian minister, and people like to let you do what you would like to do. And so you start moving through Europe, crossing borders with groups, sometimes one person, sometimes a couple at a time, sometimes children. This story is the story of Martha Sharp. It's the story of Martha and Wait Still, her husband, Sharp, two Americans living in what is now the Czech Republic in 1939. who are sent by the emerging Unitarian Service Committee to go see what can be done. There's a refugee crisis budding. And here are a group of people who think they might be able to do something. And so they're sent to work with organizations, and soon it becomes clear that that work needs to be done, but it's not going to be enough to help people where they are. That the threat of violence is so big that whatever they can do to get people out and across borders, they will do. And Martha and Wait Still, they're supported by others, but they don't really get to see them much. They know that they're there, but this work is underground. And it's not authorized, it's not sanctioned. It is, to be very clear, illegal. And as every criminal knows, it helps if people don't know what you're doing. And so as Martha crossed borders with groups of people, she'd present papers with a new symbol on it. A circle with a cup inside, the flaming chalice. The new symbol of the Unitarian Service Committee, a completely made-up symbol commissioned by the Unitarian Service Committee for free. This is not a new trend in church. And that's someone who's volunteered a lot in church, you can tell. And the Austrian artist Hans Deutsch, who's an atheist and knows nothing about these strange Americans and their religion, but thinks, well, this might be a group worth supporting because they seem to be doing worthwhile things, creates this symbol. Deutsch draws something that looks kind of like a cross, but isn't totally, and looks official, something to put on paperwork, something to put in the toolbox of a pretty young American woman who is trying to make sure that what she is doing is not apparent. And this is the origin of the chalice in Unitarian Universalism, but it's a three-part story. For Unitarians who believe in the oneness of God as our original heresy, we like to do things in three parts a lot. So that's the first emergence of the chalice. But then a few decades later, another opportunity to do something different, to draw the circle wider, no matter how controversial or embittered or scared others might be. The chalice again becomes a symbol of uniting people across difference. But it's church politics, and so to be clear, it's a much less glamorous story. The second origin of our chalice, the two-circled chalice that we use here, well, that's a circle for Unitarianism and a circle for Universalism. It grounds us in both these heretical traditions and tells us that though we come from two distinct theological differences, we are stronger together, theologically and organizationally. And then a couple decades after that, another opportunity for the chalice to emerge into our collective life happens. This time it moves off of paper and into our spaces, our homes, our worships. I don't know that worships is actually a verb you can pluralize, but there we are. I did go to seminary. But it doesn't start out in the open. Again, it starts as something underground, specifically in basements, because that's where lots of churches put their children. It starts in the children's program, and it starts with religious educators saying, families and children need ritual. We need something to remind us of why we go to that place every week. Plus, it's pretty, and we like it. And so the chalice moves from paper to a living, breathing flaming symbol of our faith in children's spaces. And despite the authorities, namely ministers and adults, being resistant and grumpy about it, the chalice emerges from hidden spaces in basements and family homes into sanctuaries, into a place that we share together where children and adults come together as something living and breathing and, well, quite frankly, regular for us. Regular enough that we forget why we do it and why it matters. We come each and every week and we begin our services by lighting a chalice and we end them by extinguishing to say, there is a reason we are coming together. And there's hope and possibility in that coming together. Each of these three parts of the chalice origin involve a time where people gathered together to do something powerful that they could not have done alone, where they took bold risks, where love drew the circle wider and required us to see each other as whole and human across difference, across age gaps, across race and theology and belief. Each of these three threads of the chalice origin, because we do it every week, you might think were celebrated and lauded at their time. But each and every one of them was, at one point, an unpopular choice, a choice that required risk and courage. The work of the Sharps and others like them in Eastern Europe, interwoven with stories like that of Jenna's grandfather, interwoven with the work of love and justice in the world that we come each week to proclaim is part of our purpose, was wildly unpopular. Unsanctioned, unauthorized, illegal, and denigrated by President Roosevelt and our elected officials. The embrace of Eastern European refugees and Jewish refugees in 1939 was not a popular type of work, but it was the work that they took up at that time. At that time of cruelty and confusion, Unitarians, as well as Universalists, in small pockets, kept sparks of hope alive. Arguably made not a big enough difference, but a difference all the same in those who crossed borders with fake papers that looked official, with a new made-up symbol commissioned for free. We live again in a time of cruelty and confusion, of shocking violence. Many of us learned on October 7th of the killing of over 1,000 Israelis, mostly civilians. Something far away that doesn't touch us, and yet to put it in American terms would be the equivalent per capita, relative population, not per capita, be the equivalent of 40 or 50,000 people being killed. And since then, in the 4 months since, in a campaign of vengeance, well, the equivalent of Palestinian deaths in American population terms is about 3 million people, over 3 million people. We live in a time of confusion and cruelty where our heart breaks and the sparks of hope are sometimes hard to see, sometimes hard to feel. And yet the fire that burns within finds containers to express possibility for justice and a courageous love. Now, I know numbers, quite frankly, they're hard to hold. Things far away are hard to hold, and of course, what's happening in the Middle East is only one of many conflicts. In the next few years, Rochester is set to receive 3,000 to 4,000 refugees from many places. And just before this service, during Connection, people met with Michael Murphy, who lit our chalice earlier from World Church Services, which is a refugee resettlement organization, to see if our congregation wants to be active in that work. That spark is just starting now. And if you want to get involved in that work, there'll be invitations and opportunities. It's not the only way to make a bold and courageous difference, but it is one way. One way we take those abstract numbers and those things that happen far away, and we figure out what it means in our own lives. The chalice emerges and becomes a part of Unitarian Universalism as a symbol of deception, a symbol of moral obedience, a symbol of a fire worth tending in the context of fascism. When anti-fascism called people to unite and show strength in equal, if not greater, proportionality to that which hopes to divide us, which hopes to call others monstrous, which hopes to use the rule of law and respectability to dehumanize those without power. The chalice was a bold reminder of our courageous love. Each and every time we light it, let the flame and the spark that we kindle here be a reminder of what is possible. Each and every time we gather holding a piece of the world and some of the pain and suffering in our own lives and out in the world into this place, may we gather knowing we find ourselves in a vessel that holds that pain and says something can be done. And we are all a part of it. May it be so. Amen.
Please rise in body or spirit, and let's sing our closing hymn, The Fire of Commitment. From the light of days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faces free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion lead to call us on our way, when we live with the assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment
If you are inspired to live a life of love and justice, I know that there are many ways that people express that and find ways to connect throughout Rochester and the greater world. I believe as a Unitarian Universalist, part of the way that we grow in our faith and express our faith is through justice work. And for some people, that means getting involved with things here at church. Of course, our refugee possibilities are growing, but we have other ministries, other ways people make a difference. Our reproductive justice emerging ministry and our environmental justice ministry have ways to connect. And this coming week, our school's partnership is hosting a video called The Right to Read, about literacy and the justice work that our school's partnership does right here in Rochester. And so I invite you to attend that, to find one way that you can grab a hold of this thread and use it to help live a life on fire. But we don't want to burn down the church, so we're going to extinguish our flame here. We extinguish this flame, but not the lighted truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go knowing that you are held in a vessel that unites us across difference of belief, across difference of experience, across difference of many types. Go knowing that you are a part of a raging fire of possibility, and that each of our sparks are needed. Amen. Go in peace.